Thank you for clicking on this video. As a new content creator, I can really use your help. So please like, share, and subscribe because it's the easiest way to help someone out without 1 red cent leaving your pocket. How to build Thor Unworthy.
You fall to the son of Odin.
No hammer needed.
You fall to the son of Odin.
Something in your eye?
We have a lot to go over, so let's get right to it.
The Abomination clone is defeated. Well done, Avengers.
The key elements to the Thor Unworthy build are his gear and his skills. Let's go over the skills you'll need for the Thor Unworthy build. You'll be using primary and mastery skills. The first skill you want to make sure your Thor Unworthy build is using is called a hammer skill, but it's actually not a hammer skill. This skill right here, Headstrong, is a signature attack. After throwing the hammer, you hold the square button to perform a powerful headbutt that leaves enemies open for follow-up attacks. You want to keep Thor on the ground when using his Unworthy build to take advantage of his headbutt attack. This attack is central to the Thor Unworthy build. Headstrong is also a hidden signature attack because it's over in hammer skills rather than in light attacks with its hammer spin signature attack. This signature attack allows you to break blocks, has a high damage, a medium impact, a high stun, and the reaction it causes is a stagger reaction to the enemies. If you're not looking for the Headstrong signature attack, you can sometimes overlook it. The next primary skill you want to focus on is Thor's intrinsic ability. With the God of Thunder intrinsic ability, while Odin Force is active, you boost the strength of all melee attacks with an electrical charge that applies shock damage to targets and interrupts enemy attacks. With the Legacy of Odin intrinsic ability, while Odin Force is active, attacking and defeating enemies will refund intrinsic energy, keeping Odin Force active for a longer period of time. This is important because melee attacks restore 2 points of intrinsic energy. Defeating enemies will restore 15 points of energy. You also want to use intrinsic ability Odin's Offering. With the Odin's Offering intrinsic ability, when the intrinsic Odin Force meter is fully depleted, defeating enemies instantly grants a boost of 15 points of intrinsic energy. With Thor's Unworthy build, In his mastery combat, you want to choose melee stun damage, which increases melee stun damage by 15%. Unarmed damage, which increases damage from unarmed attacks by 15%. And willpower takedown mastery, so that when you take down an enemy, they're dropping a regen pack. For your ranged mastery skill, there is only one skill, I believe, that is important to the Thor Unworthy build. And that is the Guard Breaker ranged specialization. This skill allows ranged attacks to break through the enemy's block. This skill is important to take advantage of the Expert Protection perk on your Epic Proficient Protection Grip gear, which gives you a 38.4% chance of getting a defense buff if you kill a pinned enemy. Under the Mastery intrinsic ability skills, it's good to choose Force of Will, which allows you to deal damage while Odin Force is active and will recover 1.2% of willpower per hit. Maximum Force, which increases the maximum amount of intrinsic Odin Force energy by 15%, giving you more energy to work with. And Surging Force, which increases the automatic regeneration speed of intrinsic Odin Force energy by 12%. And in your intrinsic overcharge mastery skills, you want to choose Lightning Field, so that when you're overcharged, surrounding enemies will be intermittently struck by lightning. Charged Resistance, which increases damage resistance by 50% when Odin Force is overcharged. And Damage Force, which increases all damage by 15% when Odin Force is overcharged. So by combining the benefits of Eternal Spark, Force of Will, Maximum Force, and Surging Force, Thor becomes a literal battery unto himself, always generating electricity for the next attack. Here is the gear I'm using with my Unworthy build to complement my skills. First, we have Hive Mind's Edge. It's a legendary melee gear. On this gear, it has electric accelerators, a perk that adds signature attack shock damage to every attack. That's important to Thor's headbutt attack, which will now always deliver shock damage. For his ranged gear, I'm using Epic Gear, Proficient Protection Grip. The reason why I'm using this piece of gear is because of the perk at the bottom, Expert Protection. It gives me a 38.4% chance of killing a pinned enemy and granting a defense buff. The third piece of gear I'm using is an epic piece of defense gear, the Nimble Buff Breastplate. On this piece of gear, all of the buffs are important. The first buff, Nimble Buff, gives me a 24.8% chance of perfect evading and granting a damage buff. Since Unworthy Thor is going to be doing a lot of dodging, more than likely he'll be getting a lot of damage buffs with this Nimble Buff perk. Second perk is Courageous Buff. This gives me a 31.6% chance, if critically injured, to trigger a damage buff. Now, I don't plan on being critically injured, but just in case, that's a good safety net buff to have. And most importantly is the last perk, and that's the Proximity Armor perk. which gives me armor when in proximity to other teammates. Since I'm not going to be using the hammer and will be on foot most of the time as Unworthy Thor, being armored near my teammates will always be a benefit. Last but not least, we have the Girdle of the Thunderer. It's an exotic piece of heroic gear, and the reason why I'm using the Girdle of the Thunderer is because of the second perk on the gear, Lightning Potentiator, which increases the amount of shock damage dealt with any attack by 20%. So now all of my attacks with my fists as Unworthy Thor or my head in a headbutt are going to be increased by an additional 20% because of the Lightning Potentiator perk. When it comes to major artifacts, I say that's personal preference. When it comes to your Unworthy Thor, I choose to use Tactagon to increase my damage whenever I choose. With the Unworthy Thor build for minor artifacts, I'm using the Norn Stone of Endless Bounty, which has an Apex Breaker perk that increases my signature attack damage by 11.9%. I'm also using a minor artifact called the Norn Stone of the Fanatic. It's an epic piece of gear, and it also has an Apex Breaker with a signature attack damage increase of 11.9%. So between the two minor artifacts, my signature attack damage has been increased by almost 24%, meaning I have a stronger headbutt. And that is my Unworthy Thor, folks. I really appreciate you sticking with me through this video. I hope you found it informative. I hope you have fun using Thor without a hammer. And as I said in the beginning of the video, your support really, really helps. I appreciate you watching the video all the way to the end. Again, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.